That's what we get right now in Lagos. How on earth can we stop the fires in Lagos, especially the one at Balogun Market? And after a not so great defeat from the major opposition, the People's Democratic Party, it's been one suspension or one crisis, if I might call it that, to the other. What happens to Nigeria's biggest opposition party, the People's Democratic Party? We'll try to answer some of these questions and give more insights, even as I welcome you to another edition of the Newsroom. It's 18 minutes past the 6 o'clock hour. Grudgingly, I'm back to work. It would have been great to still be somewhere in Port Harcourt resting with my family and not thinking about what's going on in the newsroom or what's going on right here in Lagos or what's even happening in Nigeria. Yes, I found a way for about 2 weeks to block my head. Is that the right word? Just sharp. I don't want to hear anything. I tried and it made me calm down a bit. But I got to feed family. I got to earn my pay, and that's why I am back. Good evening, Lagos. It's a pleasure to be here. Officially, I actually resumed today, but at least I worked yesterday. I did the music show. In case you missed it, it's called Rewind, and it comes every Sunday at 9 p.m. Yes, that's me using the newsroom hour to talk about my music show that comes up 9 p.m. every Sunday. But today, I've got to talk about something serious, not play Ja Rule or Tupac Amaru Shakur. It's not been a great week. In the last 7 days, 19 shops burnt in the Olowu spare parts market. Lagos State telling residents to prepare for above normal rainfall. Well, if you've not seen some of that kind of rainfall, I've seen that in Port Harcourt. Well, Port Harcourt is usually, Rivers is usually the home of rainfalls. It's been crazy the last 2 weeks I was there. Of course, we moved over to Nigeria's total debt rising to about 46 trillion. PDP reversing its suspension of former Ekiti Governor Fayose and, of course, former Senate President Anyim. The DSS confirming, rather strangely, I have to say, plots to install interim government. Police arresting Portable. Well, today the update is that he is being charged and granted bail, but stuck somewhere until he meets his bail condition. And of course, the PDP National Working Committee replacing Iochayu with Damagum as their national chairman. And then organized labor suspending their strike action of picketing CBN offices. But of course, one of the biggest news from the past week has been the controversial audio, that has split a lot of opinions, has got split opinions. The controversial audio involving allegedly the presidential candidate of the Labour Party and a well-respected clergy in the country. It's got a lot of persons talking. To be very honest with you, I personally have tried to avoid that conversation. I've tried to avoid a lot of conversations for my mental health, I would say. But we've got to do the news, so we've got to engage in some of those conversations. Well, we will start, first of all, by tackling some of the issues we have had here in Lagos, where tragedy struck last week. One person was confirmed dead. Five-story plaza in Egbamuno Street, Balogun, the popular Balogun market, where he destroyed over 500, almost 600 shops, actually. That's according to NEMA. And over the years, the fire right there at Balogun market has become like a recurrent decimal. Maybe after every 2 months it happens. After 3 months it happens. And the way those shops are actually clustered doesn't even help matters, because getting firefighters, to come there to stop it becomes a bit of a problem. Well, we're going to have this conversation with the zonal coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency, Mr. Ibrahim Fariloye, who has joined us right now. A very good evening to you, sir. Welcome to the newsroom. Hello. Okay, looks like we're having issues getting him. But just before we try to do that again, let's let you know that October last year, the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu unveiled 62 brand new fire apparatus consisting of fire trucks and support vehicles to empower the Lagos State Fire Department. Yeah, I remember that it was celebrated. It was quite a good one. Hello, good evening, sir. Well, thank you for joining us on the newsroom.
Okay.
You are tuned to 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is the newsroom. And of course, in case you just joined us, guys who are listening, the voice you just heard is the zonal coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency, Ibrahim Farilui. Once again, thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
You're welcome, ma.
Thank you. He remembered my name. Okay. Why does it look like Lagos State has had, some increase in fire disasters or fire incidents since the last quarter of 2022 and this first quarter of 2023?
Yes.
Yeah, I was asking. There seems to be an increase in fire disasters over the last 6 months in Lagos. Is there a particular reason why?
Well, there is no particular reason, and it's just because of the nature of the fire these days. This has been happening for the past 5, 7, 8, 9 years. At this time of the year, every year. It's only because this one attracts more attention. That's why more emphasis on it. And compared to previous years, the type of fire disasters occurring these days is even far lesser than what had happened in the last 5 years.
Wow. Okay, so like I said at the start of the show, I had actually, I hope my boss is not listening, but I took myself out of my station's newsroom because I wanted to avoid anything that is news. I didn't want to hear anything, but by the time I got back, I found out, that this fire we're talking about raised over, in fact, the number that your agency gave, 580 shops. That got me really, really worried. Just to be clear again, that number is actually correct, right? 580.
I think you watched the video on the various media television stations. The chairman of the Markets Association himself was the one that declared it open with all available radio television stations.
Hello, Mr. Ibrahim. Oh dear. Just when this conversation was really getting interesting. The network can be such... Okay, let me not say what I usually say in the newsroom before I get fined. But this is not a laughing matter. Like I said, I was shocked, when I saw that number, 580. And the next question I was about to ask Mr. Ibrahim Farilui, who, by the way, we're trying to get back on the line, is how best, we can... Because there's really no need talking about these things after every 2 months or 3 months. We need to find a lasting solution. One of the great solutions, of course, the Lagos State government did a couple of months ago was getting, those fire trucks and support vehicles, to empower the Lagos State Fire Department. But of course, solving fire disasters goes a lot more. There's a lot more to do than just getting the equipment. What's we on our own? What are we doing, individuals, when these fire incidents happen or before they happen? We've had cases of people buying petrol and storing in shops.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ibrahim. Thank you very much for joining us once again.
Thank you, ma. The Nigerians, especially in those markets, for that just a 5-story building to house about 500 and something shops, as acknowledged, with the list attached to each of the traders, is highly embarrassing to Nigerians. I mean, to people who heard the man talking about it. And the man went further to talk about safety of that area, that they have complained severally and all those things like that. And the management of the market could not understand them and they didn't obey. There are a lot of things that have gone wrong. The block work was not as big as it was, but the metal work was much bigger than even the block work. When the block work failed and it collapsed, the metal work are still people are still inside the metal work. So it's part of those things that ignite fire. Just recall that another fire occurred at Olowu. Though that one is just a building, but lot of attachments along with it. And that building, they suspected a sort of somebody 2 days before that fire at Olowu. Somebody suspected they caught somebody trying to tap a cable, electric cable from behind the building. And when it happened on the day it happened, the same spot they claimed that the smoke started from. So accessibility, unsafe practices with electrical connections and all those things could be the factor. Why that of Balogun Market, the penthouse, the fire started on the last floor, and the last floor is supposed to be the penthouse where most of the generating plants are located. And we have seen it in the past in so many instances where the penthouse, that's where they keep their generators and they run their generators. Some of them would like to fill the PMS generator while it was running. They will fill it up with the PMS. So some of these things is what we need to enlighten them of. One, they fail to get their wares insured. Then what are the other safety measures that have they adopted? Do they recruit some of their members to be fire or emergency marshals so that in such case, because the chairman told us that they tried as much as possible within themselves to contain the fire. It was when it got out before they started contacting responding agencies.
So let me confirm once again, do we have water hydrants at the market in Balogun? That's
a challenge. Though we have the Nigerian Port Authority not up to a kilometer to that place. So the Nigerian Port Authority, we were able to source for water in that place. So, but generally, people are investing millions. If each of like for instance, that very building, if there's a water hydrant in that place, let's say they start each shop 10,000 naira, which is not too much to save there something. If they install a fire hydrant there, it will have saved the date for early response and other things. One, the accessibility was impossible. Though in front of the building, that is Balogun side, it was easier. But the real effort was on the other side of Bajuma side, where fire service or responders could not even get through access. So the main building, we had to stay about 300 meters away before we could try and get to the building.
Well, this situation you just painted, it doesn't really look good, and it wouldn't be great to come back in another 2 months, to still discuss this same thing. Because
disaster. Once you don't adopt disaster risk reduction system, then we are bound to experience it until when we are ready to imbibe it. Prevention is always better than cure. The paradigm shift against response is reactive in the world. It's no longer there. That's why NEMA is always emphasizing, and they see us as if we are just making unnecessary noise for adoption of disaster risk reduction. Let us find out what are the risks around our area, then what are the best, both traditional and modern ways
to solve them,
prevent such risk developing into disasters. But people maybe because they have not understood the concept, but we are still continuing. But thank God, so many other people are understanding it, and they saw the reduction.
Right.
If you remember 4 or 5 years ago, by this time we have recorded more than 200 fires because of the transition from dry season to wet season. A lot of factors are contributing. The humidity, lot of things are heating up. So materials are getting heat, and when you have heat in a place, heat generates fire.
Easily. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ibrahim Fariloye. Always a pleasure to speak to you on these issues.
Okay, ma. Thank you, ma.
All right.
Welcome, ma.
It's actually a sir, but thank you very much. That was the
Welcome, ma.
zonal coordinator of the National Emergency Management Agency, Ibrahim Fariloye. He's not the first person to call me a ma. I've heard that for almost 13 years that I've been doing this job. My producer is laughing here. I know what to do. I'll send the query to him after the show. All right. That's my cue to move on to subject number 2, which has been a recurrent decimal over the last couple of weeks. And without boring you too much, like I did say in my intro, we're talking about the PDP. It's been, I don't know if crisis is a word to use, but it's been one issue, from losing the election, even though that's in court right now, but that's not what we're talking about, to suspensions and the party's national chairman being removed from office and all of that. And to speak about this is my very good friend who always answers whenever I call. He's a PDP member, a very strong one at that. He joins us via Zoom. Mr. Ose Aneni. Ose, a very good evening to you and welcome to the newsroom once again.
Always a pleasure, my guy.
Yes, my guy. Even though we still have fights to fight. Also, in a nutshell, in 1 minute or 1 minute 30 seconds, what is wrong with your party?
1 minute 30 seconds. That won't go hard though.
Just give me a clue. No need telling too many stories.
I think what what Nigerians are witnessing within the party is sort of like the continual evolution of the political party from being the dominant ruling party to an opposition party. I think the PDP is still grappling with that change in identity. And so you sometimes see us acting with arrogance that suggests or implies we don't yet realize that we are in the opposition and we need to do things slightly differently.
You know the good thing I like about you, and a few persons, in your party, not all of you though, a few persons, you are included, is that when you admit when you are wrong, and I like that. The fact that you said it seems that your party sometimes are still almost 8 years after, still grappling with the fact that they are no longer the party in power, but the opposition. So the cynic in me would ask, in the build up to the general elections, one of the issues that kept popping up that led 5 of your governors to more or less allegedly go with anti-party activities, even though many will say, it's not allegedly now, it was in the open. But I use that word I used the word allegedly. One of the contending issues was that they wanted your national chairman out of the way. Weeks after losing the election, it seems your national chairman is out of the way. So the average Nigerian would ask, why was it so difficult to do this before the election? And the PDP would present a united front against the ruling party. Why?
I think the problem lies in the framing of the question you just asked. You assume that if IU had stepped down, Wike and the other G5 governors would have been satisfied.
Well, that's at least that's what it seemed.
If you pull it back, let's go to the origins of this. The G5 imbroglio came up as a result of one man's dissatisfaction with the democratic process. And
who's the one man?
His insistence, Governor Wike.
Okay.
And his insistence thereafter to impose as much damage as he could, I think, to the people who he felt denied him a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And if you anchor what has happened on that point, then everything that has subsequently happened, including the most recent shenanigans around the removal or the purported removal of IU, start to make sense. Because we no longer have elections, there's nothing to still contend for on the face of it. but you still see this vindictive pursuit of almost punishing people within the party. And, like I said before the elections, in the lead up to the election, and even now, you have to be able to, if you're a public servant, put the interest of the collective over your personal interest. And leaders within the party seem to struggle with that point.
Is Chayu the major reason why you lost the election?
No, it's not. It's INEC. I think I don't want us to shift responsibilities. I think INEC conducted, to my mind, the worst election we've seen since 1999. It even eclipsed 2007's, and I said it eclipsed 2007 specifically because of how high people's hopes had been taken, and how low INEC and how violently INEC dashed those hopes. So, I cannot speak about winning and losing because the election, to my mind, the results are not a reflection of the will of the people. And we're hoping to, in court, prove that.
Okay, so while you say these elections that are just ended are the worst since 1999, I'm glad you didn't go as far back as...
No,
83, 83 or 79. I wasn't old enough for those two elections, but I've read so many horrible things about those two. But some would say a 26-year-old lady in Kwara State was just elected as a lawmaker. Some sitting governors lost their bids to go for other positions, Senate positions. We've seen opposition parties winning in where we didn't expect them to win. Labour Party, for example, in Lagos in the presidential election. The NMPP winning the governorship seat in Kanu. We've seen the APC, the opposition in Benue, winning. We've seen some of these. We've seen the Labour Party getting a stronghold in the southeast and some other areas. So there are 1,001 Nigerians who might not agree with your assessment of the 2023 elections being the worst since 1999.
So, I described it in terms of not just violence and intimidation and even outright rigging that occurred. I described it in the effect the election itself would have on democracy, on elections, and the attitude of citizenry towards the electoral process. And you saw the precipitous drop between engagement during the presidential and 2 weeks later in the governorship. Even though traditionally you see a drop, it was never this bad. And it was simply because people were saying, look, we've lost faith in the process. So whilst you can cherry pick, for instance, I can say the PDP has never won in Zamfara, and we won in Zamfara. I think, of more concern is the loss of hope in the electoral process. And that's a lot more dangerous to our democracy than, whatever Pyrrhic victory we happen to have secured in a place like Zamfara, for instance. So it's in that context I sort of am framing this conversation. People are not going to engage in the democratic process. Tinubu, if he's sworn in, goes in as the most unpopular presidential candidate ever.
Why do you say if he's sworn in? Is there
because,
any?
Again,
there's nothing as far as I know, irrespective of the DSS's statement that he put out. There's nothing that I know that will stop him from being inaugurated. He's been declared as the president-elect. Inauguration is May 29th. So I would rather say when and not if. Is there something I'm missing? Please tell me.
So I'm
not putting you on the spot. I'm just asking the question.
Because you have to be very careful these days before they find you 5 million naira. So because we are in court, there's always hope that this thing will be reversed.
But that can happen before May 29th. Also,
in the unlikely event that it does happen before May 29th, that's the context within which I'm saying I'm framing that. But so there isn't. I mean, as you know, with the PDP, there isn't really any. There has never been an appetite to be undemocratic. We are not looking to, sponsor or foist a coup upon Nigerians. We believe in the democratic process, and that's why we are going to court. So, talks of an interim government by the DSS, sort of like remind us of when we had, if you recall, leading up to the presidency, you had leading figures within the APC saying that they were being fought, or Tinubu's ambition was being sabotaged by people within government. So if the DSS, I think when the DSS comes out and says they have, evidence that senior officials or people are plotting to foist an interim government upon Nigerians, the only people that can do that is the government in power. It's only Buhari that can say there's a lacuna, and because of this lacuna, I am going to hand over to an interim government until whatever problems I see have been resolved. So it's not the PDP, it's not Labour, it's not NNPP. I think the DSS is speaking to members of the government and is warning them that they know that there's a plot afoot. But that conversation doesn't involve the opposition. It's a ruling party problem.
Yeah, talking about that issue, I've been very careful, about that. I found, to be honest, when I saw the press statement, I was like, what the, like, okay, if indeed there's a plot, if let's for the sake of this conversation agree that, okay, there's possibly, some plots to ensure that happens. Do we actually need to put it out publicly? If you know the persons, if you already have the information about the persons, how about go pick them up for investigations, or charge them to court if you have enough proof? But anyway, that's the story for.
Before we move on, you talk about charging them to court. I think of more concern to most of us who read that statement was the reference by the DSS, the Department of State Security Service, or whatever they call them, that people are trying to procure frivolous injunctions. And it was the dismissal of the court that concerned me. It suggested that the DSS was posturing that they would not recognize any injunctions obtained
from an arm of government.
In their opinion, those injunctions were frivolous and do not need to look at when we talk about IU, for instance. IU was illegally removed. It's not in our constitution. The ward cannot suspend the national chairman. Only NEC can. But as soon as a court judgment was procured, the party had to comply, because whether you like it or not, a court has restrained our chairman from presenting himself as chairman, and we have
until
to comply.
Another court
pick and choose
it. Exactly.
We exactly. So I think for me that was even more concerning. That a security arm of government was saying that injunctions obtained from a court are possibly frivolous because they would disagree with the content of those injunctions. I think that was very, very concerning for me personally.
Again, I think that's another. We could spend another 30 minutes or 1 hour discussing that DSS issue, but I'd like to leave that, and let's no, I'm not scared of any fine. If that's why you're laughing, at least I know how to handle such conversations, but like I said, it's a story for another day. You've made accusations of INEC and talked about rigging, alleged rigging, and all of that, but some have also accused your party of also allegedly rigging in areas where it could. What do you say to that?
I think it's a difficult one. I was reading a couple of days ago what happened in Rivers State, for instance, where APC lawyers were arrested by the police. And I don't know if you saw the drama playing out in Rivers today.
Yeah, I saw
the
it.
APC candidate, Tony Cole, is being presented from approaching the INEC offices to get certified true copies of the results. And, I always talk about a democratic spirit, and I cannot sit here and say, if and I don't want to, cop out and say it's the G5. It's a G5 state, so it's not the PDP. It's a PDP state. It's a PDP governor. And if these types of things are happening, we have to come out and condemn it. It's not enough to say if it happens in our side, it's fine, and if it happens in Lagos, then it's not fine. Anywhere it happens, anywhere you see or sense undemocratic elements, you have to condemn them, because they ultimately will come back and punish all of us. We all will suffer the consequence of it, because it compounds and it spreads. So I'm ashamed of what's happening in Rivers State, for instance, because I'm a PDP member. I condemn it I condemn it completely without,
any reservation.
Any reservations. And I'm hoping, with the next governor, he understands that, you cannot rule a democratic people with violence and intimidation. You just cannot. We saw what happened in Abia, for instance, and I was surprisingly proud to see people come out and celebrate their liberation, even if it was liberation from a PDP government that had apparently failed for 8 years. That's what democracy is about. I saw what happened in Benue, where APC won, where the people celebrated their election of their governor. I saw what happened in Oyo. In Oyo State, the PDP was against Makinde because he was a G5 governor. The PDP leadership in Oyo was against Makinde, but the people came out and he won with an even larger margin than he won in 2019, simply because he had delivered as far as the people were concerned and were more interested in their personal prosperity and progress than they were in inter-party issues. And that's the beauty of democracy. And I would rather celebrate that and also condemn what happened in Lagos, for instance, and what happened in Rivers, and in any other place where there are pockets of violence used to push through a democratic mandate.
All right, Ose, time not so on our side. I would have loved to engage you a little bit on the controversial audio that's been flying around and conversations have been on for the last 2 or 3 days. Like I said, I've intentionally avoided that conversation on social media, but hopefully we'll have more time.
But I will say something very quickly on that audio.
30 seconds.
And I've been telling very quickly. I personally am not interested in whether it's real or whether it's fake, whether it's manipulated or not. I want to assume that a private conversation between two respected individuals, the leader of a church and a presidential candidate, was eavesdropped upon and recorded and shared. And that's a crime. Our constitution guarantees privacy, and specifically privacy of telephone conversations. I think it's section 37. So if we live in a nation where that kind of thing can happen without punishment, just to embarrass or ridicule, I think that's more concerning. I know the type of personal conversations I have. I don't want them placed on Nigeria Info, for instance. And it's concerning when you start living in this type of state where government, and this is me assuming, either government or non-state actors are able to
get
listen in and put out private recordings of bona fide citizens of the country. I think that should be condemned. I think everybody should be worried about that. And I'm calling on our friends in the DSS, the police, everybody that has an ability to investigate the source of those recordings to find out and stamp it out. We are a democracy, and it shouldn't happen. Have to be condemned.
Thank you very much. Also, you just said everything I was about to say in my, my last words. Irrespective of whether it was real or not, the fact that I can have private conversations, and like also said, there are some phone conversations Ufuoma Egbamuno has had that Ufuoma Egbamuno does not want to be played on air because. All right,
you understand.
But anyway, we're trying to laugh it off, but it is not a laughing matter, and that's how we're going to wrap up this edition of the Newsroom. I'll be back again next week, Monday, hopefully from 15 minutes past the 6 o'clock hour. Thanks to Ibrahim Fariloye, the zonal coordinator of NEMA, and of course, Ose Aneni, who joined us on the show today. My name is Ufuoma Egbamuno. Thank you to Emmanuel Onwoka and the Newsroom for a fantastic production. The sports guys are up next. I can see Chuma already in the building. He's got loads and loads for you guys. Stick around to 99.3 Nigeria Info.